topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Welcome to Aging Like a Badass, where wrinkles aren't the problem, they're the solution. I'm Kimberly Price, your 40-something host and founder of Aging Like a Badass, who, like many of you, is dead smack in the middle of an anti-aging crisis. So stick around and I'll show you the raw, real, and outrageous tips, tricks, and truths about aging like a badass, because wrinkles aren't the problem, they're the solution.
Welcome to the very first live Aging Like a Badass on camera debut here. And I'm not seeing my co-host, Summer. Where did she go?
I'm here.
Hey.
Hi.
Welcome. So this is my co-host, Summer, and we're going to give this whole web camera, not just audio version of Aging Like a Badass a shot.
Woohoo!
I think it's been an experience already. So we're supposed to go live at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're here Central time at 12 o'clock. And of course, first day, technical issues. But
always.
We figure it out. We're moms, right?
We got it.
That's right.
We got it.
So I would love, just because this is our first show together, I would love to both introduce ourselves. Who are we? Aging Like a Badass has been around for some time, but only in the audio version. And so now we've got the new web version. You get to see our faces. I can promise you that a lot of these days, I'm going to be in a hat because I'm on the go a lot and taking the time. You know, I get up at 6 a.m. and literally from 6 until I hit the pillow at night, it's go, 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 go. So many days it's not going to be the curled hair and the, all put together and the nice. It's going to be the workout hat and just getting to be me. And that's part of the cool, in getting to do this, to be raw and real and just be yourself.
Absolutely. It's a good thing you guys can't smell because I taught a class at the gym. I did come home and throw some lipstick on and curl my hair because I don't go on camera very often, but so don't let it fool you. I'm really not clean.
Well, we can't always be put together anyway. So you go first. Introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you? Why are you on here? This Aging Like a Badass podcast. I don't know. Just give us a little background.
Okay. So my name's Summer Meyer. I am wife to an incredible husband. We've been together 21 years in July. We have 4 kids, age range, 15, 13, 11, and 10. So all really close together. Little bit of history on that because everyone thinks like we're insane because we have 4 kids in 5 years. 2 of our kids we adopted through foster care. So two of them came to us kind of as surprises. And so we have those 4 kids. I live in Cedar Falls, Iowa. Grew up in Cedar Falls. Went to college at the University of Iowa, met my husband there, and we proceeded to live there for 14 years before moving back here right after my 3rd was born, and we decided to be a little bit closer to family, and it worked out with my husband's job. So, and how I got here, I think we met on LinkedIn. Is that right?
I think that's right. Yeah, but we have a lot of similar groups. Yeah. Friends. So I'm not in the Cedar Falls, Waterloo area anymore. I actually grew up there, moved away. Oh my goodness. 30 years ago, probably. We've been in Des Moines 20 some years now. And yeah, I think we reconnected through LinkedIn and then discovered we have all these mutual friends. And
right.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of, I was trying to think actually yesterday. I was like, how did we initially connect? I think it was LinkedIn, and it was just kind of like, oh, we know a ton of the same people. We're interested.
Yeah.
You're just kind of in that health and wellness space and passionate about making people, aware, and especially women, like empowering women. And it just was something that interests me, and we connected.
We did. And I had you on the
Mhm.
podcast as a guest. It's
Yeah.
been,
Yeah.
my goodness, has it been almost 2 years now?
Gosh, I don't know. Everything
I know,
everything like
blends
stood still.
together. I
Right.
know you were on here post-COVID.
Yeah.
Post-COVID meaning after, the lockdown period, because we talked about that, and we talked about what you
Yeah.
did during that period of time with your kids. So I know you were on here at least one time after all of that happened. So, well, great. Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm super excited we get to do this together. Sometimes it'll just be me. Sometimes it'll just be Summer. Sometimes it'll be the two of us together. But we hope to have a lot of fun. We hope to bring a lot of really good energy. We hope to inspire and empower and uplift those of the listeners that are out there. And, Aging Like a Badass we just had 3-year anniversary. It came about initially, and I had a lot of resistance to doing the whole video portion of it. I don't like to be on video. It's funny. I'm very social, but being on video is just nothing that I've really ever enjoyed. And when I started the podcast, it was really, it was a hobby. I love interviewing people. I'm super curious about how people function and what they do, and, how they elevate themselves and impact others. And so my very first guest was Jesse Itzler. And we had a ton of fun. He was super gracious. I was incredibly nervous. I probably need to go back and listen to the original episode 3 years ago, because I'm sure I probably, waded through that and it didn't work out, but it was fun. We had a great time. He had 20 minutes. So he said, I've only got 20 minutes. So we'll make the most of, the episode that we did. And it was great. From there, I've interviewed some incredible people with incredible stories. And, the name came about not actually because, of course, as we're in our 40s and later move into our 50s and 60s, et cetera, we start to worry about aging. So there, of course, was an element of that, but it was more about thriving. How are people taking their journey through life and maximizing that in a way so that you age like a badass? So if you're going from your 20s to your 30s or your 30s to your 40s, what can that look like? How can you live your biggest, best life every single day? So a lot of my guests are doing just that. They've done incredible things. I've had women in their 80s on here, which is incredible. I have a friend, he's an adventurer. He's done the Iditarod Trail. He's becoming a famous photographer and is spending time in Africa taking pictures. So if you get an opportunity to listen, you can definitely tune in on any of the channels for that. We'll be here live every week, bringing to you, lots of individuals who are living and thriving in a lot of different areas of their life. So, and like I said, we're here to have a bunch of fun and bring, good, powerful, energizing conversations to the world. And I think we need it. And we're going to have a conversation today around, a topic that I was just sitting a couple of days ago thinking about, and I thought this would be a really, really good first topic to go live on video about and have a discussion. So real quickly, I'm Kimberly Price. I'm the founder of Aging Like a Badass. I'm also the founder of a platform that we've just launched for women called beathriver.com. Yes, it's BEATHRIVER. It is not Be the River. I get Be the River all the time. I'm like, how do you see Be the River in this? Come on. It is Be a Thriver. So check that out. We've got a lot of fun things coming, including a one-day retreat in October here in Iowa. I'm a mom of 4 also, 20, 18, 16, and 14. Girl, 3 boys. Our anniversary is in April, and we will have been married 20 years, together 26 years. What else? I'm bilingual, speak Spanish fluently. I love adventure and travel. I really enjoy exploring. And I think it's a little bit why I love to have different people on here, because I love to explore their world and their life and their points of view and all of that. So that's a little about me. All right, you ready?
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So we're going to talk about trust today. And I've learned a lot about trust in the last year. And I was telling Summer before we came on the show, we were discussing, what we're going to talk about around trust, because this is a really, really deep topic. And as humans, we're hardwired to connect with others. And in order to be able to truly have connection is not just getting on Facebook and saying hello to somebody. That's not genuine connection. To have genuine connection with another human being, you have to have this level of trust with them. And so I wanted to talk about that and talk about some of the things that have happened in the world and where we're at as a society with this really small word that has a really big impact. And so that's where I want to get started today. So let's start with a question just to kind of get things going. And obviously, if any of the viewers have questions too, would love to hear those. But and look, I'm learning all the things here. So I have my people helping out. We can put that website on the screen at the end of the show. So we'll show all the things and figure all the things out.
Right.
What does trust mean to you, Summer?
Gosh. Oh, that's a deep question.
Right off
not going to go in light. We're not tiptoeing today. We're just going to
dive.
jump. Which is basically what trust is. Like, that's what in my head I see the trust fall, like when people stand there and they just let go and they know that people are going to catch them and they're not going to go crashing into the forest, right? Like those trust exercises, I think knowing, just full out knowing someone has your back no matter what, and they're not going to let you down. And I think, like we mentioned prior to jumping on here, just how it's so lacking in society right now. So I would say for me, it's just that knowing, I don't know, knowing, just being so certain that they have your back and maybe even your best interest in mind. Having that connection.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's a word. So it's my word for this year. So every year I do a vision board. I talk about this a lot I've talked about it a lot in prior podcasts. It usually doesn't come to me until sometime in December. I'll usually pick a word and then I'm given a word, and it's never the same as the word that I've chosen. And this year it was trust. And I thought going into this year that it was going to be about trusting, at another level of trusting myself and being able to trust others. And it's taken on a complete life of its own in so many ways. In planning the Be Inspired event, which was in May, I had to learn to trust every moment of every day. I had to trust the people around me and how they were going to help or not be able to help. I had to trust that even in the 9th hour, when things were falling apart right before the event, I had to trust that it was all going to work out and it was all going to be okay. So I really had to learn a level of trust levels of trust and what it meant to be able to trust. But I also got to see all of the areas in the world that we don't have trust anymore. And so that was probably the most interesting, discovery that I had along the way. And one of the things that I discovered in the journey was, so I had roughly 150 conversations, one-on-one coffee dates or conversations with women here locally in the Des Moines area. And at every one, I was asking similar questions. And there wasn't a single conversation. And I didn't specifically say, have you lost trust in the world? I didn't ask that question. But hands down, in every conversation I had, there was an element of no longer having trust in the world that they had lived in prior to the pandemic. That trust that everybody had prior to walking into 2020 was now significantly different. And I would even go as far as to say significantly less. Would you agree? Or what's been your experience?
100%. I mean, I feel like I question everything. I question the government. I question medical suggestions. I question schools. I feel like there's so much more uncertainty even with schools. Everybody questions, why are we doing this? Why are they doing that? Where we used to just kind of trust, like, oh, that was the education system. And even like friendships. I mean, I just feel like there's just a really brokenness in like our trust that everyone's really doing things for the right reasons, right? Like I feel like we've turned so skeptical.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Do you feel that? I mean, like, we need to restore it, but I don't know what the simple answer is for that.
There's no simple answer. I think
I know, right?
A lot of work. A lot of work. I don't think that, I don't believe that we're beyond. I think there are good things in I'm going to call it the excavation of a lot of the things that have happened, the opening of a lot of things that maybe we were unwilling. Sometimes we can blindly trust, and it's not necessarily a good thing either, right? And so I won't say that the loss of some of the things that we had trust in is all bad. I think the problem, and again, this is my opinion, I think part of the bigger problem right now is there doesn't seem to be any direction in how we're going to gain back some element of trust, even if it's in a different way. So when we have uncertainty, it's, I always kind of go back to my journey with cancer. And there's things that I'll never trust again. The moment that I heard you have cancer, there are things that shifted, that it doesn't matter how much I backpedal and try to go back to that time before hearing those words, I'll never be able to go back to that time again. And that can be a good thing. And that can feel really uncomfortable. And so I think even in that journey, as I spent a good amount of time in, maybe 5 or 6 years, a lot of time with cancer survivors. And I've done multiple interview series with cancer survivors and thrivers. And again, it's a very similar situation to this, in that they're either going to take the perspective, the choice to move forward towards being able to trust again in a new way, or they're going to keep trying to go back to the way it was. And in doing that, they stay stuck. Yeah. And so how do we get this entire global, and we'll just take the United States, our society, out of this place of feeling stuck, feeling like there's no way forward? Who do we trust? And I have my own opinion on this. So I want to go here with you and think about this for a minute. Where would you start, knowing what you know today, knowing that our government's been turned upside down, our medical system has been turned upside down, our, even down to the community level, there have been so many things that have been turned upside down, and we're looking through a new lens. Where would you begin? What would this look like for you? And bring it all the way down just to you. What would this look like? What steps could we individually start to take that could maybe collectively start to build this foundation again, this new foundation, and maybe even a better foundation than we had before?
Right. Well, and I think for me, I would say you start grassroots, start small, like in your home, in your girl tribe, your close-knit friends, your family friends that you interact with daily, right? Whether It's, little acts of like just trusting that they're going to show up. I mean, I'm a mom and I have teenagers, you have teenagers. Like, how often do I send reminder texts because I don't trust that they're going to do what they're going to do?
Yeah.
And I don't let the cards fall that may. And I don't explain trust. Like, oh, well, the reason I send you 17, it seems like nagging because I don't trust that you're going to get it done. Right.
Yeah.
Like, starting to really teach that to my children in my home and saying, like, here's my expectation. I'll quit nagging, but you have to build that trust with me. Like when I tell you there's laundry on the stairs, it needs to be in your hamper, and you don't do it, that trust is broken. Start there. Start with your your girlfriends. Always giving the benefit of the doubt, oh, I can't make it tonight to dinner because blah, blah, blah. Instead of instantly being like, oh, they just don't want to come, or that's a terrible excuse. Like, really giving them that space, believing them, reaching out to them, like creating that unconditional love, I've got your back no matter what type feeling. I think if you start little, it goes big. I mean, my husband actually in the last year ran for school board, and it's never anything he's aspired to do. I can promise you that. But I think it was actually him, and it was really impressive to me that he came and said he wanted me to run, which was hilarious. Because if you know anything about me, I mean, the amount of technical problems I had getting on here today should tell you something. But like, I'm like, you want me doing a budget? Like, this is not good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But no, he said, he believes to like regain trust in like even the government, you start grassroots.
Mm-hmm.
You start at the teeny tiny non-paid, be on the school board, and that can create enough change, a little bit more trust, start small where you can control and go bigger. So that would be where I would say we start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have all the answers. I wish it was easy.
Yeah. If we all had the answers, we wouldn't have the problem.
Right. But that's what I think, not even smaller than community, because like you said, community would be great, but I always think you start at home and you build outwards.
Yeah. Oh, the inside out theory,
Mm-hmm.
kind of an inside out. I was going to say one of the things, that I think of and this has been significant just in my own journey with this word over the last year, is it starts with you. It doesn't even start with you in a small space, like outside of, it starts with you. So do you trust yourself? Really trust yourself?
Right.
And I don't mean that like, are you going to lie to somebody? Are you going to deceive somebody? More than that. It's more than that. It's deeper than that. And I think that a lot of trusting yourself comes from being able to have this deeper connection with yourself. So you can extrapolate, you could take this all the way down. So we know that as humans, we're hardwired to connect with others and trust others. And we know that without connection, we'd not be able to survive as a species. That includes with ourselves. So we can't sit at home and just throw our hands in the air and say, nothing makes sense anymore. Everything's uncertain. I'm not going to trust anybody anymore. That doesn't work. And you can't say you can't say, well, I trust myself, I just don't trust anybody else.
Right.
That doesn't exist either. You can't only trust yourself. There's a distrust in yourself if you're unable to trust others, which I know is a big circle that we could run in around and around in, but it's the truth.
Right.
If you
I
can't
believe
trust
that.
others, then you ultimately have something about yourself that you can't trust, and you need to expand that a little bit.
Right. Well, and you can't curl up in a ball at home and say, the only person I can trust is myself. I'm not going out anywhere. Because like you said, that shows I don't know where confidence comes in, but there's almost a lack of, I mean, we all know this. People are going to fail you. people are going to fall short, right? But if you trust that even when people fall short, I'm enough, like I'm going to be okay, then it's a lot easier to go out into the world, right? If you trust that I've got enough in me that okay, people are going to fall short. Your kids are not going to pick up their laundry every time they go up the stairs. I promise you that. If they do, God bless you. You're amazing. But like there's you have to be able to say like I'm not going to quit on everything because the only person I can trust is me, because actually what you're saying is, well, I'm not good enough to overcome or be bigger than one person's mistrust. I don't know. I just think you've got to start with yourself and you got to show up for yourself, and then part of that is showing up with yourself in bigger spaces.
Yeah. And I think this, going back to this word of connection, really exploring deeper, what is authentic connection and how are we leading? So when we look at leadership, it doesn't take, when you look at, presidency all the way down, through different levels of the government, or it's the CEO of a corporation, or it doesn't matter if, you're starting as an employee at the most basic level, or you've worked your way to the top of a corporation. If your leadership skills, integrity, trust, obviously, is a leadership skill, but leading in some of these things like love and compassion and listening and understanding, those are the things that create connection. And if we don't have those core things in leadership first, and we're not seeing, and leadership is us being a mom to our kids in our homes. When you talk about starting in your home, it's how are you even leading in your own space with your own people? Are you leading in anger? Are you leading in fear? Are you leading in uncertainty and frustration and all of these negative feelings? Or are you leading in love? Are you getting curious about things that you don't understand, or maybe you believe you understand and are correct in, but there's always, there's never any solid, there's always room to have a more open ability to be able to listen to others. And I think there's such a lack of trust, because if you and I get in a room together and we disagree about something, we can immediately, in today's society, we go to the polar opposite end of the earth in wanting to stand our ground in what we believe in, because we don't trust that we can have an opinion with each other anymore.
Well, and we can't respect anyone. Perception is reality, right? And we may not agree on something, but I'm not going to change the life experiences that you have had, right? Yeah. And you're not going to, and each one of those life experiences, like I believe we've had for a reason, and they've kind of shaped us, to who we are and why we are the way we are. And it also, we can have different experiences that make our opinions more solid for us. That's our truth, right? And I can respect someone and I can trust that they're still a good person, even though we don't agree. And I think that's the world is like, you're here or you're here. There's no middle ground. There's no, hey, we can have a nice dialogue. You may not change my perspective, but I can understand why you feel the way you do. If you can open up your mind and see why I feel the way I do. And even if you can't, I can still appreciate you, because it's not about this, reciprocity, right? It's me being able to say, oh, I do see why they would feel that way. Yeah. I don't have to agree with it. I don't think it's necessarily the right way, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And I just think we've lost that.
Yeah, we have. We've lost the ability to be able to have conversation and be able to communicate in a way where, even if I vehemently don't agree with your opinion on something, I can listen. I can listen. And I can hear you as another human being. And so many conversations, and I don't get in, and this isn't a good thing either, where just complete avoidance. I don't want to be in conflict with people about things. So I often stay out of those heavy conversations. But what I feel like people are missing in their lives, and why some of this discussion, I feel like it's even in negotiation of where we're going to go with some of these topics, whether, and I'm going to throw them out there, and I'm not going to give an opinion either way on them, whether we're talking about gun control or vaccinations or Republican versus Democrat, or any of these divisive issues where people are either on one side or the other. There still needs to be an amount of respect between both that allows them to be able to have a conversation and listen to the other as a human being, and not immediately put up this wall of, I hate you, I'm dividing on, and I'm going on this side because you don't believe how I believe anymore. This is where I think this connection piece is so important in building trust again. We all have had different opinions since the earth existed. I mean, that has been, and yes, some things have gotten out of control and crazy, but the reality is there will always be differences. There will always be differences of opinion. There will always be people on one extreme or the other. But how do we all get along and learn to communicate again and love again? And I think this is where, and we've talked about this before, I think this is where going back to the non-issues and establishing these key or core values and principles again will allow us then to have these bigger discussions around what is best. What is best for our neighborhood, our society, our community, our school, our world, our country? But you can't even have those discussions if you can't be a good listener, if you can't demonstrate compassion, if you can't demonstrate love, if there is no connection, if we aren't in relationship, we'll solve nothing.
Yeah, no, I think there's an element of, with trust, there's also an element of risk. Does that,
oh, yes.
Sure. There's a, you're putting yourself out there because you're trusting. That trust fall, like, you're putting yourself at risk by opening up. And I think sometimes I'm like you, I really hate conflict.
Yes.
And so I just kind of clam up. I don't clam up about if I'm not talking, it's weird, right? So it's like, okay, I don't want to upset anyone. I don't want to break any trust, but sometimes I think to elevate the trust that we need, you have to put yourself out there and take the risk that somebody may not agree with you, but they still can love you. Like, you can still love someone and not agree with them.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to, like, I don't know, put our big girl panties on and just say, like, you know what? Like, we don't have to agree with everything that our best friend says, but we can still love them and trust them and take some risks in conversations so that we can connect at a deeper level. If we don't take the risks to say, like, you know what, that hurt my feelings, or, this is something I'm passionate about. How many of your close friends know, like, what you're passionate about, or does that seem too risky? But if you went there, would that increase your trust level? Right. I think.
Well, and I think it may be in those situations, and sometimes that answer might be no. Sometimes it might be that, no, I can't go be honest, and I'm not going to take that risk because so-and-so or this group or this organization or this community, I'll get ousted, or, they'll come after me, or whatever that is. And then I would say, then seek a community. There are people out there that are grounded in their curiosity and their listening ability. It's happening everywhere. People are awakening to the fact that this is not working to stand up and stand your ground in an issue. without also having compassion and love for the other person and listening skills. And this, I'm not talking tolerance. This is not about tolerance. This is about being a human to another human. Tolerance is something else. And, we can have another conversation about your truth versus my truth at a different time. And we can all have our own truth and still get along. Because I don't have someone's truth else's truth doesn't mean that I'm, judgmental and closed-minded and at all. It just means I have my truth, but we need to start being able to use the language of all of this and communicate in a way that doesn't offend and doesn't hurt and doesn't come out of anger and frustration and fear. Because a lot of us now have a lot of fear.
Do you ever feel like you're afraid to say anything for fear of offending anyone?
100%.
I mean, I feel that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that probably a whole nother topic, but it's like, we've got so many like, oh, you said this and it was wrong, that I'm almost afraid to say anything anymore. I mean, you don't want to offend anyone, and I genuinely, in my heart of hearts, don't want to offend anyone. So sometimes I don't say things because I don't know how to say them.
Yeah.
Because I'm out of fear of like, oh, is somebody going to take that the wrong way? Or is there a group of people that is going to flip that? It's like we're constantly looking.
Yeah.
How.
For reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, an example, this was a couple of years ago. My youngest son is Black, and I got a private message from a woman who was adopted by a white family, and she basically called me out and said, like, you're doing everything wrong. And I got it at 9:00 at night, and I was shattered and I was angry. And I just look back on it. I didn't probably handle it in the best way, and I don't think she did. Like, I think she was coming at me out of love. I do believe that. The approach was, you're momming wrong.
Yeah,
and
which
again,
feels different than, and so just see each other and the points of view.
And it was, again, there was a broken trust. Instead of an opportunity to come together and connect and say, I know I can learn a lot from this woman. And prior to it, I really respected her. It was just, I think there's always this, how can we say things without offending someone and doing it lovingly without causing a break in that trust? And I don't have the answer.
Maybe there's a language that we can start using, and that, I'm really trying, I'm really learning. Like, I preface, if I listen back, honestly, on mostly the last couple of years podcasts, it's like I'm explaining myself to explain myself in many of them, because I'm afraid that somebody's going to take one, and there's even things along this, what we've been talking about in trust, that you could take my language and my verbiage and the way that I've said it, and you can run with that and say, yeah, but have you thought about this? And that just doesn't make sense because that doesn't fit here. And have you ever been in this situation, Kim? Because your idealistic way of believing that trust can work just doesn't work here. Or you can look at this as an overarching theme that two moms, two individuals, two humans that care about changing the world in a positive way, that want people to be reconnected again, want people to be in community again, want people to be in relationship again, and are simply having this conversation because nobody else is. And you can take that and say, this is interesting. I might not agree with everything, but I do agree there's a trust issue. And how can I make a difference in improving it? That's all I want from this conversation. I don't want to create division. I don't want to seem opinionated, like I have all the answers. Heck no, I don't have the answers. But I think if we don't start talking, if we don't start opening the door to some of these things in a way that invites people into a space, and this is interesting because I've got chills, come full circle. My mission in life is to create the safe spaces, safe, trusted spaces to empower women anytime, anywhere. I want to create places where you can feel safe, because when we trust, we feel safe. And when we don't feel safe, we can't trust. So
100%.
we have to start creating those containers again. I'm not going to say it all correctly all the time. And I am open to absolutely, if I would ever say anything offensive, please let me know. Lots of conversations, back at the beginning of 2020 and how I use certain language in certain ways that's hurtful to other people. And my heart isn't to hurt other people. So of course I want to know these things.
Right.
Well,
it's the most basic need. Like, I've done a fair amount of research on trust because we have a child that came to us at 2.5 with massive trust issues because he was abused and neglected by the people that were supposed to care for him first, right? The baby's first most basic need is to trust that the parent, when they cry, the parent feeds them or changes them. And that creates trust. And then what happened was he had a lot of trauma, right? Well, we've all been through a lot of trauma in the last 3 years, right? So I've done a lot of trust work in my home, but we need it as a nation and as a world. We need to show up in those little ways. And for me, it's sometimes like making a big deal out of a little thing so that he can trust that I respond. It's, as a bigger kid, like I scratch his back. It used to be I would rock him. I'd rock this big boy. You wouldn't think about rocking a 4 or 5-year-old at night, but he didn't get that. He needs that trust, that bonding. Well, now it's a scratching the back. Well, we need to do that in our communities, with our friends, with our neighborhoods. Like, they need to know that I'm going to screw up sometimes, but you're still going to scratch my back, or you're still going to show up, and that's how you start to build. I mean, I look at what we have done in our home to gain trust with him, that like, this is a safe place. And you look at just what trauma does, it breaks that trust. And I think we're all going through a trauma, and we need to stop and look and say, part of trusting is boundaries. But then you make those boundaries bigger, they grow. Like, absolutely. I feel safe here, so I'm going to stretch. Like, okay, can we build the boundaries a little bit long? Like, I feel safe with these people. Maybe I can add one more person. Maybe I can add this group.
I love that. I think that's a great segue. And we only have a couple minutes left, but I think it's a great segue into what our bigger mission is and what we're working on. And that is a platform. So we have a platform, and it is beathriver.com, not betheriver.com. It is a platform right now. It's for women to come together in this safe space to be empowered and inspired anytime, anywhere. So we're doing, we're really building this in pieces, online and in community. And so thinking grassroots at how can you take this? How can you bring this into your community? So we've started in Des Moines and in Iowa with this kind of grassroots movement. Really is, how do we create these trusted spaces again? How do we reconnect to our fellow, neighbors and friends and communities, ultimately then to grow out into this global, bigger piece globally. And so we have a retreat coming up on October 15th for women. And we're just going to, take this one step at a time rebuilding trust, as you were saying, even, with your child after a trauma, it takes time. It takes boundaries. It takes repetition, and it takes those experiences, those positive experiences over and over and over again. And so that we can become reconnected with each other. We need this, for the survival of, ourselves, our families, and our country. So we want to be on the forefront of that. We'd love to join, hands with you if you're interested in more information, for your community or your neighborhood or your home, or you just need someone individually to connect with. We're both here. We have multiple, we're going to condense everything as we move forward. Right now, we have multiple platforms online, multiple Facebook groups that are available. Eventually, we'll whittle that down to, just one. But right now, you can connect with us multiple ways there, message us. Summer, any last words before we go on trust? Or
I honestly, there's in my own head, which, risk keeps popping up. So, you said, we have to trust, but then I keep thinking like there's a component of that is risk.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to take a step so you can trust, so that people can trust you. So,
take the risk and join us.
Yes, take the risk. That's what
take the risk. Join us. We're here to be open and listen and have open conversation, loving conversation. And we will be back next week here, same time, same place, 1 p.m. Eastern time. If you're here Central, that's 12 p.m. Central time on Aging Like a Badass. Have a wonderful week. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
This is Kimberly Price, your 40-something host of Aging Like a Badass. See you every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4WN Radio as we come together to break the rules, ignore the critics, and age like a badass.